Very happy to be here again this evening to worship with you, enjoy your fellowship, to feast of the good things that God has for us. It's only been my privilege to be here in Dallas at a meeting about once other than this in the last 7 or 8 years. But I do thank God for the faith that burns bright. Even though time has elapsed and great valleys have been crossed and heights have been crossed, yet I thank God I can say the gospel is still real in my heart and in my life. Real more than it ever has been before, to a deeper depth, and I appreciate it more than I ever have before. There's a couple of verses found in the first chapter of the Gospel of John that mean a great deal to me, especially in the last couple of years. They seem to burn deeply into my heart. They're the 11th and 12th verses. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. We think often of the coming of Christ to this world. We celebrate his birth at Christmas time, and we talk about his resurrection and his death and the great price that he paid for us in the springtime of the year. And well, we should repeat these wonderful truths and remind ourselves of the great price that God paid for our redemption. But it's well to remind ourselves also of the obligations that it puts upon each and every one of us. Now, there's none of us that are free of the obligation that is upon mankind because of the coming of Jesus. We're obligated because of the price that was paid to return our lives to God and to give him our best and to give him our all, because he gave his all for us. I think many times of his coming. It's a good thing to ponder on. It's a good thing to talk about. It's a good thing to meditate upon. When you think of the brightest jewel of heaven coming down to this sin-cursed earth, this earth that is cursed by God with a curse upon it, and to suffer at the hands of sinful men. When we think of what a tremendous price was paid, it staggers your imagination. And then we think that every bit of that price had to be paid in order that one of us might be made free from sin. It was necessary for that price to be paid for just one sinner to be saved. No less would have been enough. It took all. It took everything. It took the best that heaven had just to save one of us. And I think of that. And I think, too, of the power there was in that coming. That even though it took everything that heaven had, you might say, the brightest jewel of heaven to come down to this earth to save one of us, yet there was power enough in that coming to save every man and every woman that ever lived on the face of the earth. Man sinned in the beginning. We all have sinned. We came to the age of accountability and we chose sin. Deliberately, we chose sin. And in doing so, we broke an infinite law. And in breaking an infinite law, we had to have a Redeemer, an infinite Redeemer. None less than Jesus Christ, the innocent one, could die and suffer for us. You couldn't bear my iniquity, and I couldn't bear yours, because I have a sentence of death passed upon me, and you have the sentence of death passed upon you already, because you chose sin, and because I chose sin from the very beginning. If one person could step up and serve for another one, why then there might be an opportunity that some other way could be devised whereby man could get into the favor of God. But because we all passed under the sentence of death, because we all were sinners from the very beginning, sinners by birth and sinners by choice, why we cannot bear the penalty of another man's sin, because we're already under the penalty of sin ourselves. You stepped up to the judge and you had committed a capital crime, and you stepped up to the judge and you said to him, let me bear the crime, let me bear the punishment of this other man over here who has also committed a capital crime. He'd say, you cannot take that man's punishment because you have to die for your own sin. But thank God there was found one who was innocent, free from all guilt, free from all sin, free from all unfaithfulness, perfect in every way. He could shed his blood and take your penalty and mine for our sins. How we thank God that he did that. Jesus came. He came and brought me peace. He came and brought us life and everlasting joy. He came and brought us hope. He came to give us an assurance and a reality in this world and in the world to come. To whom did he come? He came first to his own. He came to his own, the people of the Jewish nation. He came that they might once more have an opportunity to receive him and to come underneath the blessings that were promised them from the very beginning. But it says here, he came unto his own, and his own received him not. What a terrible thing. What a terrible thing that great price could be paid and then rejected. What a terrible thing that great sacrifice could be made and then be despised by those for whom it was made. I've heard parents, and I've had mine say it to me, if you knew what it cost for me to do that for you, you'd appreciate what I've done for you. And I know as a youngster, I would consider what my mother had done for me, how she had labored for me, how she had done the best that she possibly could to provide the necessary things of life for me and the comforts and everything that my young heart went out for. And when I realized and comprehended that, my heart went out in love for my mother and appreciation for what she did for me. But how different it is with mankind towards God, when God has paid a supreme price, far greater than any man or woman could ever pay. When he has exerted a love that is infinite and is clear on beyond our comprehension, and then we reject him, and then we fail to appreciate it, and we fail to receive it. He came to his own, and his own received him not. What a pity! What a tragedy! To me, that's the greatest tragedy that's ever happened in the world. The crucifixion was a tragedy in one sense and a triumph and a glorious victory in another, because through that we were able to be made the sons of God. But the greatest tragedy in my mind is somebody refusing God, refusing and rejecting the Christ and the gift of salvation that he had brought for all mankind. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But thank God for the next verse. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. Thank God for those who receive him. There isn't many. There isn't many when you consider the whole world's population. It's only a little flock. We've never been promised that we'd have a great number, but oh, there are some who will receive him. And to those that receive him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. Did you ever stop and think what that means? Did you ever stop and ponder on the great blessing of being the Son of God? Son of God. Heirs of God. Joint heirs with Jesus Christ. Heirs to all the glory and the beauty and the blessings of heaven. Heirs to eternal life. Just think of it. Spend a whole millennium in heaven, 1,000 years with Christ, and you haven't even begun. And thousands of years have gone on, and then you're no nearer the end than you were when you first started. Oh, what a glorious thing that is. What a glorious thing. That's one of the blessings that he gives us if we receive him. And on the contrary, there is an equal punishment, equally infinite, equally eternal for those that reject him. After rejecting him, being lost forever, there is not one hope of their ever coming and ending to that long midnight of punishment. Because of why? You say, me, just a poor mortal on earth, why should I deserve all of that? Because you rejected an infinite salvation that was given to you. Oh, we thank God for the gospel. We thank God for it. Well, you say, well, how does this concern me? I'm a Christian. Well, it's pretty easy, even though you're a Christian, to reject what God is doing for you. You can do it in many ways. You can do it in neglect. You can do it in carelessness. You can do it by failing to walk in all the light of the gospel and all the light that God has shed across your pathway. The writers of Hebrews, the book of Hebrews tells us something about that. He says, writing to these people who were Christians and these people who had already been saved, he said, therefore, we ought to give the more earnest heed to the things which we have heard, showing these people were well acquainted with the fact of Jesus and the fact of His coming to earth and of His sacrifice. These things which we have heard, lest at any time we should let them slip. For if the word spoken by angels was steadfast, referring here to the giving of the law on Mount Sinai, for if that word was steadfast, and every transgression and disobedience received a just recompense and reward, how shall we escape? We, under the light of this glorious gospel, we in this glorious dispensation, when the gospel is being spread and poured out upon people, the time that the prophets and when men of old, the godly men of old, look forward to with anticipation, hoping for and wondering at and looking for and wishing that they could receive the things of which they prophesied. And you and I are living in that time right now. You and I are living in the time when the glorious gospel is proclaimed and poured out upon us in its fullness. How shall we escape if we neglect so great salvation? Oh, it shows us how important it is for us to regard this wonderful salvation and not become like those to whom Jesus came and who rejected Him, or who were careless about the thing, or who let it slip through their fingers and were lost and despised and rejected Him merely because He came to them, but they received Him not. The psalmist tells us that all the wicked shall be cast into hell, and all the nations that forget God. You don't have to actually crucify Him. You don't have to actually put Him to an open shame in the sense of what the world calls that. But you can just neglect away your salvation. You can neglect it away. You can be careless about the thing. You can go on in your own way. You can go on in your own will and way and miss the thing, thinking all the time that you're a Christian. You can have the thing burning bright in your own heart and take on an independent spirit and a spirit of longing to have your own way and miss the mark entirely and find that you've missed it at the end. Why? Because you've neglected the salvation of God. Thank God for a gospel that's pure and that's clean and that's holy. I thank God for all that it means. Well, if Jesus came to His own received Him not. Then and He comes to others, and they do receive Him, and those that do receive Him, He gives power. And we've seen people testify and heard them testify that they have found this wonderful salvation, and we've seen it ourselves, how they've come under the influence of the gospel, saw the change made in their lives, and how they went out to live new lives. If we've seen one case like that, then there's no excuse for any of us. Because if God can save one person, He can save anybody. If God can come down into a town, into a community or a city, and He can draw one person out of that city and take them across the miles and put them down in the congregation of the righteous and draw them from across the sea or over land or from obscure places, if He can bring one person so that person can receive the light of the gospel, then it's an absolute, irrefutable fact that anybody that wants salvation can have it. You say, I haven't had a chance like some of you. Yes, you have. The first chapter of the book of Romans tells us that we can learn all about God just in the works of His hands. We look about us and we see the creation around about us. We can know all the truth of His existence and the truth of His infinite Godhead and absolute power just in what we see around about us. And Paul says in writing that glorious book of Romans that the heathen, those that are out and know nothing about Christ, have never heard about Him, that they can look at these works of God's hands and see there the eternal power of God and His eternal Godhead, and he says that they are without excuse because of that. You don't have to sit under the blazing light of the gospel to be guilty of neglecting so great salvation. But how much more we are guilty if when we do sit under the blazing light of the gospel, then we refuse and reject it. What a terrible indictment that puts upon us. I thought one day, as I stood in a little pulpit in a little congregation in a town in West Africa, about 8,000 or 9,000 miles away from here. It was in the evening, it was hot and it was oppressive. And there was a little group of banded together to worship God. It was Christmas Eve. They'd never had a Christmas service there before because some way in their native thinking they thought it was a heathen practice to honor the birth of Jesus. But I told them, no, that wasn't heathen. That was Christian. Heathens didn't worship Jesus. So they said, well, let's have a Christmas service. So they gathered together there that night for the first Christmas service that had ever been held in that place. And this verse came as I stood up to the pulpit that night to read, and I read it, and the thought came to me as I looked back through my mind's eye. In that very building, there was a little study, and I thought of how about 5 or 6 years before, a precious man of God, who, by the way, is in the air right at this very moment, bound for camp meeting, Brother Vanderpoy, he knelt in that little study. And he prayed to God, and he says he'd been nothing but a nominal Christian. He didn't know the power of God. He'd heard the Word of God mentioned, but it meant nothing more to him. They might as well have substituted the word of Baal or anything else there as far as the power of God being manifested to him through it. And he just prayed. He says, if there is a God, why you lead me? And his heart was hungry. And God just spoke to him and told him to go down into a part of town that he didn't want to go. And says, you go down there, and there's a little group of people down there, and I want you to become one of them. He says, oh no, not there. Not there, God. I don't want to go there. Any place but there. You know, Lord, I have some responsibilities. You know, I'm the lay reader down here at the Methodist Church this morning, and I've got to get there. But the Lord pointed into this group of people and showed him that he must go down there. And so finally, after debating and after arguing with God for a time, he got up and he went down. And as he entered that place, the Lord spoke through the minister, just as he came in the door, and spoke the very words and the very thoughts that he had in his heart. And he says, well, there's surely something to this. God's here. This has never happened to me before. And so down on his knees he went and he prayed, and the Lord saved him. Wonderful thing. He went back to his home. He went back to this little study again, and he prayed. He says, God, I thank you for what you've done for me. And the Lord let a little tract come into his hand that told him about sanctification. And he said to the man that gave him this tract, he says, oh, where did you get this? He says, I want to see that, and I want to keep it. The man says, I really shouldn't show you because the man who's head of the church where I worship has forbidden me to ever let anybody see this tract. But he says, don't worry. He says, I want to read it. And he read it. He found out there was something more there for him. And God led him, and he was wonderfully sanctified in that little study, in that little room. And again he went down before God and praying. And the Lord revealed that there was more for him. And the hunger in his heart cried out for more. And that precious man of God prayed, and the Lord poured out the mighty baptism of the Holy Ghost and fire. There, a man, you might say a heathen, a native of Africa, clear over there where they don't have any blessings compared to what we have, God could successfully lead into the 3 experiences without one error. God can do it for one, can do it for another. If God can go over into West Africa and bridge all the heathen idolatrous worships, and I used to lay there right in that house and hear the heathen drum beats just a few ways away from me, hear them all night long, hear them in their fetish dances, hear them in their worshiping of the devil, hear them in their worshiping of idols, right there at my own hand. And if God could come down in the midst of all that and lead a man into absolute and perfect knowledge of the gospel, such as is absolutely unimpeachable, that you can't lay your finger upon that man's life, or you can't lay your finger upon the foundation that God has put in his heart. If he can do that for him, he can do it for anybody. You say, well, then why aren't we getting it in America? Why aren't more people getting it? I'll tell you why they're not. Because they don't want it. And I'll tell you why those are getting it that are getting it. Because they do want it. What is your situation tonight? Do you want God more than anything else in the world? Do you want the things of God more than houses or lands or friends? Do you want the blessings of God more than prestige and power or authority or a little comfort or a little solace in this world? Do you want the blessings of God more than life itself? Well, if you do, you're going to get them. But if you want one thing of this world more than the blessings of God, you won't get anything from God. He came unto his own received him not. But to them that received him, to them gave he power. Is your heart open? I don't care whether you're a Christian or not. This can apply to all of us. Is your heart open tonight? Are you seeking for more of God? Is your heart hungering? In these last few days, my heart's just been burning with hunger for more of God. Somebody called me up the other day, and referring to the camp meeting, and I just said, "Oh, I'm just hungering. And I just could hardly contain myself, even talking over the phone. My heart is hungry. I'm looking for the time of the camp meeting, but I want to go there more than to receive a blessing. I want to go there blessed so that I can be a blessing and thereby receive a blessing." How hungry are you? If your heart's open, then the Lord can fill it. If you will open your heart to him, then he can come in. If you're saved, God can sanctify you. If you're sanctified, God can baptize you. If you're already baptized, he can put more of the armor upon you. He can fill you with faith and courage, and he can fill you with aggressiveness. He can put the message of salvation upon your heart and in your lips and in your hands, and you can go forth to do service for him in some way. It doesn't matter not what it might be. It would be some small duty in the house of God or whatever it is. You can serve him. How hungry are you for God tonight? Oh, we thank God that there is an open door of grace. There's a place where people can pray. There's an opportunity. Someday that door is going to be closed. But tonight, anybody that wants to receive anything from God can receive it. We thank God for this place of prayer and for this place that's been set aside for the worship of God. We thank God for everyone that we see praying their way through and for every answer to prayer. Remember, if one person prays through, then that's a testimony that everybody could pray through if they wanted. If one person receives any experience from God, it's a witness that everybody could receive it if they'd but pay the same price. So don't stand back and watch the other fellow get it, but come up and get it too and give God a chance at your heart and life. Well, there are some here tonight that would like to have and manifest by raising their hand that they might have the prayers of God's people. You say, "I want something definite from God." Just raise your hand tonight. God bless you all. God bless you. You're going to have a time of prayer. Now, don't go out. Don't give up. Don't become discouraged. But remember, he's here to bless those who want to be blessed. He's here to lead those who want to be led. He's here to fill every empty heart if you'll but give him a chance at your life. Let us stand and sing and come right out to the altar and let's have a good time with the Lord.